complicated thing I can tell you about what I do, and yet it's one of the most frequently asked questions I get is what do I do with my files? How do I get my images punchy? What can you do with your files? What presets can you use? I'm going to create a few videos for this. When I really break up what I do, it's insane. I use a lot of different programs. Some of these things may work for you and your workflow. You might already have a workflow that's working great. If you do and you find this too complicated and too convoluted and too difficult to follow along with, I totally understand. You're welcome to completely skip over these parts of the tutorials, but I do go into each step kind of in detail. So if you did want to follow along, I'm going to start with what I do when I first get the file. I get asked this all the time, and I know photographers do it in different ways. I'm not saying my way is the right way. I'm just letting you know kind of how I keep things kind of in my brain and the process that I use. First of all, let's talk about, I have a disk. I do not, a CF card or an SD card from my camera. I don't do anything. I do not, first of all, I do not delete pictures in camera. It can be really bad for your card, and I don't mind going through it later on, and I'm going to show you how I go through that stuff. But so that's what I do. I ask my second shooters, please don't delete anything. I don't even care if it's just like black and your exposure didn't turn out. I don't pay a lot of attention to mistakes. I'm only focused on what turned out and what I'm going to give the client. That's all I really care about. So let's talk about, all I do is I have a USB memory card reader, and I put the CF card or whatever card I've got from my camera into it. I plug it into my computer and I upload it directly from here to a folder on my computer. And I'm going to back up. I'm just going to show you where that folder on my computer is. And you'll see I've already started sorting this through this, but basically I always start with all. So these are all the photos. Now this may take a little while. We shot close to 7,000 pictures. I had a second photographer with me. This was a 12-hour wedding, and there were a lot of details and a lot of people, etc. So that's why we have so many files. If you take less pictures, that's totally cool. You know, don't shoot like me. I'm not telling you you should. You might find that a ridiculous number of pictures, but generally I am a frenetic shooter. I do plan out in my head what I'm going to shoot, and I try really hard to get everything right in camera, but sometimes I'll even take the same shot 2 or 3 times just to make sure it's in focus. So you'll see I've got all these images here, and I move them into a folder, and I've already separated out the ones that I'm going to choose, and these are the ones that I upload into Lightroom. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I choose those files, but I just wanted to start with what I do. The other thing I will put into Gabrielle and Todd's folder as I go along, because I'm just in the middle of editing this, is I call it package, and it's the final thing. So chosen is where the raw files go. I also create one folder where editing. So this is where all the files will come out of Lightroom. I export the JPEGs and I put them into an editing folder. I'm going to go over that when I get to the Lightroom section of this tutorial. But for now, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the file structure. All is where I put all the photos. Then I choose which ones are going to go to the couple, and I call that chosen with the initials of the couple. I have an editing folder. I do the slideshows separately because I do separate between 60 to 100 files, and I like to show those pictures to the couple while they're waiting for the rest of the edits to be done. Because as you can imagine, it can be a 5 or 6 week editing process, especially if you've hired an editor to help you out and you've got other jobs on your plate. So that's just simply what I do to get started, and I am going to create a new tutorial for each individual part of my workflow. So the next tutorial is going to be on how I choose and cull the images using a program that is amazing. It may not be worth spending the money for you if you don't take as many photos as I do or have as many to sort through, but it certainly was worth the $200 that I invested. And that program is called Photo Mechanic. So we're going to skip over to that tutorial next. If you're following along, tutorial number 2 of the workflow is on Photo Mechanic and photo culling.